Very happy to welcome Bec Haagsma. She's the EGM of Customer, Commercial and Technology at the AFL, otherwise known as the Australian Football League. Bec, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, I always start my podcast trying to figure out people's sports business origin story and how they got into the world of sports. What about yourself? What was your first foray into how did your career end up in the world of sports?
First sports admin role here at the AFL, but I had a lot of history when I was working at Telstra, running the media portfolio there, worked very closely with the AFL there, the NRL, Australian football and netball. We ran a year-long program for fans and audiences with live streaming products at the time before Kayo existed. So had a lot of exposure there, but I'm a lifelong fan of sport and participant in sport, so always very keenly interested from the sideline.
And you came from, even prior to Telstra, you're in that broadcast space. You worked at Nine, and then at Telstra. So obviously, when you're on the broadcast side, and then you're in a telco side, you can't really avoid sport in Australia, can you?
No, and I would probably say I wasn't in the broadcast side. I was lucky enough to be on the digital side of businesses.
Yep.
So I actually started my career in museums. So logical step to sport from a museum.
Hey,
but,
so did I. My first job was at ScienceWorks. So
wow, how cool! So I was at the Historic Houses Trust of New South Wales and instrumental. I was the second employee at the Museum of Sydney, which opened in 1996 and. Museum experiences are all about connecting with people and telling stories, and so sport, right? So all through that journey and transitioning into publishing in the digital space, when I went to Nine, I set up what was called Nine Jump In. And is now Nine Now. So we became that streaming vehicle to allow even more Australians to connect with sport. And you can see some of the incredible numbers that streaming platforms now drive and opportunity to open up anywhere, anytime experiences for fans and audiences. So, I was sort of really at that transformative intersection, I think, of both print publishing and then television broadcast as they moved into the digital age through my career. And I'm not a fan of saying I was lucky to be somewhere because lucky's winning Powerball. But I think maybe I was a little bit lucky with how old I actually am because I just sort of hit roles and hit industries at a time of where transformation was needed and had the skill set to be able to either participate in that transformation or lead it.
And I agree with that luck piece. It is a matter of getting your skill set and having your skill set ready at that right time. And, even though I said, Nine and telco are media and that you've very much been on the technology side and the product side and that early streaming piece. Like what was, because, I remember those days when, streaming was just coming on board and broadcast was still like really much over the air is the main thing. But then you also needed to make sure the infrastructure was there to deliver it. So what was it like, I guess, on the tech side as a product and technology officer in that space? Interesting. Every single day is different, and the challenges are always different. And so, I think that's what keeps us all engaged on the inside when we're working in the industry, because we're still today finding new problems to solve and things that it's a complicated space. And I think when you're moving and transitioning businesses from a traditional format into a digital format, people think it's faster and easier. But it's actually very complex. And when you're dealing with a board and a C-suite who are like, well, it takes ages to print something or to create a broadcast product, just plug it in and put it on a screen. How difficult can it be? But I distinctly recall a holiday I was on years ago. I was in a botanical gardens in Lucca in Italy. It was a very special birthday for my husband, so he did not want me working, and we got a priority 1 tech alert. We had an issue with a stream that many people were watching, and the issue was actually related to the load for the login into the service. And so I'm sitting in the botanical gardens in the war room,
trying to pretend, I don't know what I was pretending I was doing, looking up floral species maybe to put my husband off the scent. And it's, you've got people clamoring from all sides going, well, like we've got to let people in. How complex is it? And we all know, those of us that work in the tech space, that finding a root cause of something is incredibly, it's a real maze. And I think that's challenging at times and complex, but it's incredibly interesting. And the people that you get to work with are incredibly intelligent and clever and have all sorts of different skill sets. So you have to surround yourself with so many different kinds of skills and people and a real diversity of talent. And so it's incredibly exciting to be a part of it, and always has been. From that, I still remember, I think it was 1999, I was working at Reed Elsevier, big publishing, global B2B publisher, and I remember one of the engineers said, has anyone here heard of Google? Like, we should give it a try as a search engine. And like that's, it feels like it was 5 years ago. It was obviously a long time ago, 27 years ago. And just that moment of finding something new and always exploring. But the challenges for us here too in Australia in a tech perspective are, we're constantly trying to find ways from a streaming perspective to have access to the right amounts of storage and the right delivery and the right service from our providers to enable an experience that is second to none. And geographically, sometimes that's difficult too. So lots of different things to deal with and stakeholders to manage.
And so that, sort of go back on that luck piece, like those experiences both with Nine, with Telstra, building out mobile apps and digital experiences for multiple sports, as new phones come out every 18 months and new opportunities and new builds have to happen. Was that sort of the perfect, I guess, background to your role now at the AFL?
Yeah, definitely. Let's be super clear for you and all your listeners, Sean. I am by no means a technologist. My degree's in political science. I'm a humanities person. History and literature are my sort of home ground in EPUB trivia. But that said, I think a very, very strong grounding in product and product delivery. And of course, that means you need to understand the tech well enough to get there. And so, yes, for the AFL role, I think it's interesting because I manage the commercial portfolio, the events portfolio, the content portfolio, as well as technology and product. But if you think about where we are today in 2026 and where we need to go, what we need to do to attract a new fan and what we need to do to make sure we're servicing our avid fans is provide them with an experience on every platform that is seen. They don't care the complexities behind it all. They just want what they want when they want it. And we have a job to do to find new fans, and a lot of that job starts in a social media feed, really. It starts in a feed, and that's where the funnel really opens up for us. So coming into the AFL, I'm not from Victoria. I'm not a traditional AFL. I'm a woman. I'm a grandmother. So I probably don't fit the bill, but I really fit the bill in terms of the background of attracting audiences, retaining them, and using our digital platforms. We have millions of people a week visiting us on our digital platforms, and what we do with those and how we build that connected future for the AFL is really important for us.
Absolutely. I think you are a technologist, because the best technologists can actually talk to the geeks. Like, there's a lot in that translation. So understanding the tech, but able to talk the tech, but then also be able to talk to the business and say, here's how they, like, that's the best skill of a technologist.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And really, from a sports point of view, we're all in the audience business. We're all in the how do we reach new fans? So you came into the AFL in Feb 2025, as you said, sort of an outsider, from an AFL point of view. What was your first 60 to 90 days like in trying to understand the organisation, what they'd tried? You'd obviously seen things from the outside as a partner with Telstra and seeing things from the outside. What was your first 60 to 90 days like?
So a couple of things to clarify. Always been an AFL fan. It was the first sport I sort of connected with and knew as a child. And so I didn't have to learn the sport, which was good.
Although I do remember my first, I think on day 2 it was a commission meeting, and sitting inside an AFL commission meeting as an AFL exec, I felt pretty. It was a really privileged place to be, and the conversations around footy. We were going into the for the first time in a long time an All-Stars game over in Perth to open the season up. So my first 30 to 60 days were experiencing a product in All-Stars in Perth that was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. Incredible connection to First Nations people over in WA and to the game, and some incredible moments pre-game. So felt really, really privileged to be in that situation as an incoming fan, but very wary of being, having those fan headlights on and coming in professionally. A real assessment of what was our product suite. I was also pretty familiar with the digital product suite, having run it from the Telstra side of the business about 8 years ago. But obviously a fair bit of time had gone by in that period. And so I spent my first year, let's be honest, I'm not going to say it was 60 days, getting around the business of 18, soon to be 19 clubs, vendors, commercial partners, the AFL organisation in and of itself, and attending as many games and being with as many fans as I could possibly be with. So I don't think my feet touched the ground. So it wasn't like a traditional first 90 days. I remember I went back to 9 from Telstra. So I'd spent 7-8 years at Telstra and then went back to 9 and had a pretty traditional 90-day plan. Get reacquainted with the business, some clear goals, and this is what I'll achieve in 90 days. The breadth of the AFL across Australia and understanding the different markets. Starting to understand that I needed to understand very different markets, very different clubs. The technology landscape across the clubs is and the fan landscape is obviously different club by club. And then experiencing a game at many different venues on many different digital platforms. It has you need a season at the AFL, and maybe at every sporting organisation. You need a season, not a 90-day plan, I think, is what I learnt.
Absolutely, and you've already sort of touched on the different fan segments. You've got the rusted on fans that go every week, like myself. My great grandfather played for Collingwood. I didn't have a choice. My son didn't have a choice. And then you've got these newer segments of fans coming on board, and you've been charged to keep those happy and also keep getting new ones. How do you tackle that? Across your role and across all the channels that you've got available.
We tackle that. We tackle that with data and with a rigor and a discipline around our understanding, our building of a fan segment model, and anyone who's running a business would have one of those. But being really clear around the work that we're doing, and so we're starting on that journey. We're on that journey. But we're getting crisper and more disciplined about that journey is a key focus of mine at the moment. And I think one of the things that we've been able to do for a long time is we do a great job of catering for the avid fan. We have an amazing app experience that if you want to go in and watch the Pies against North Melbourne this weekend, or that Carlton Collingwood game that's coming up in a few weeks, that'll be an absolute cracker for you, and track every player, every piece of you're great. But if you're my granddaughter, who I took to a Giants game the other week and is now an avid GWS fan, she's just also learning how to do maths. How do we help her on the beginning of her journey understand how our scoring works? What's the link in for her mum and dad and her sister to start their fandom journey? And then what's the journey for someone who's kind of who dips in and out of footy at times? So we would have seen a lot of new fans coming in through lots of different podcasts and social media this year. We've been working with Dan Gorringe a lot. We did a really good piece with Fremantle Sydney game with Dan and a watch along. And so those fans that hook into that and how do they continue our journey? We have to be led by our data and our understanding of who's in that funnel and how do we move them along, and when have we succeeded? What are our metrics for success as we move along? Is it followers? Is it deep engagement and belonging? And how do we measure that? They're things that are critical to every action we take in the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to touch on that. We're recording this the day after the Dan Gorringe watch along, which is the second time they're doing a popular YouTuber and social and podcaster, sort of like delivering footy differently was sort of his point. Was that really that piece of, well, that's where a whole bunch of our fans are. They're consuming it with Dan. We want to figure out a way to. I think the term Hutchie uses is pinch audiences. How do we go over and talk to that audience? Was that sort of part of that, I guess, that strategy to engage someone like Dan Gorringe?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we had a Australian first last night because we had a watch along with Dan, but we also had with very big thanks to our partners at Kayo and at Seven, we had the live vision on the screen with Dan. So it's a first for Australian sport to do a watch along in that way. And absolutely, like, our ultimate goal is to get people to love the game and to attend the game and to watch the game on a screen live, and ignoring that audience that comes in through YouTube or through social because they're in a different place and someone else owns that audience would not be in our best interests. And to be able to tap into that audience and to be able to work together with creators and influencers to drive, who ultimately all love the game and love the sport and want to introduce more people to it, is just something that we're really passionate about. You will have also seen last night, for instance, he had some special guests on, and at halftime he had Patrick Beach in the studio. Yep. And we thought about, I don't know if we would have done that a year ago. I don't know if we would have said, let's cross over with another sport, like let's stay in our lane and what's our lane. Yep. But having Patrick Beach come on board, and he plays for Melbourne City when he's here, and he talking about footy when he came to Melbourne, and he was like, oh yeah, the Rabbitohs, and his teammates like, mate, you need to pick a team and you need to, and so he's a Western Sydney boy, and he talked about GWS and his fandom there, and that's great. Like it's rising ships tides, that saying.
Yep.
That I never get right.
No, exactly. Rising tides lift all ships is the exact is the exact thing, and it is a case of, like, I've sort of seen that in other sports, like the NBA is very much really pushes its creators out there and gives them access, and really, but also the conversation has to happen with your partners like Seven and Kayo that have paid for the right for that match vision.
Totally.
It's getting, I guess, their heads around it, and also the legals and all of that kind of stuff. But to say, hey, this is a new audience that they will be tuning in. They might slide and sit on the couch with their parents, or they might become a new subscriber, or they will only watch via 7+. Those kind of things. It's a real, I guess, whole of industry sort of understanding to say, there is more out there, and opportunities via these new channels.
Yeah, I mean, we're fans from those that don't even know about our sport yet, because maybe they've just arrived in Australia, or maybe they're like Elka, my granddaughter, who's just starting to become aware. And then we have fans who tap in and out, and then we have avid fans, and all of those things in between. And our job, and my job, is to make sure we're catering for every single one of those at every single point in the ways that we can. And so we're developing a suite of product that will increasingly do that and connect to fan all the way along, and then that data that plays that role in how do we convert, just like in any other industry. Conversion, retention, attraction is the sort of discipline focus that sits underneath all of the creative things that we're doing at the moment.
And so we've been discussing a lot around the digital and broadcast piece, but you've got a lot of folders in your portfolio. How do you manage them all, and how do you help them intersect and help one another?
Yeah, that's a big question that I asked myself across season one. How do we manage that, and how do we bring it together? How do we make sure that we don't have silos where people are doing great work and pursuing great prioritization and roadmaps, but are they actually connected? And so I've actually recently just made a change where I'll connect all of the portfolios together. So product, fan, and technology will be connected together under one leader in my organisation, and those organisations will come together with one roadmap, and that'll mean some pretty tough prioritisation decisions. But ultimately, it means we're directing our investments and our efforts with a lot of clarity and one clear set of goals. And we're seeing a lot of organisations bring that kind of MarTech view, that technology view, that backbone of what drives that fan engagement and the fan piece and the customer piece all into one portfolio. So we're heading that way.
And the fan remains like the North Star. Like we want people to consume it. We want them to come to a game, and in the AFL's terms, membership is a big thing. If you say you're a member, like your data says, hey, people lock in. That's pretty much your roadmap to say, how can we get that person to eventually be a member?
To be a member, to play, watch, or go. Is really kind of the things that we think about, and our strategy at the AFL is now is very clear. It's bucketed into footy, fans, and future, and so we use that as the North Star, and the fans' journey through footy, fans, and future sort of underpins all of that. And then the way I think about technology is it's the enabler of all of those things. You run a danger sometimes organisationally in the way that you're structured, that maybe one of those things drives its own agenda and the others sit outside, and you end up with investment and more of a scattering and less of a focused approach. So yeah, the fan is absolutely. But when we say the fan, we need to get crisper, all of us, every sporting industry, and probably every industry when they say audience or customer, but we have to get crisper about which fan. So when Ed Bowman, who heads up our AFL digital network, is talking to his team about creating a piece of content for afl.com.au or a social post on TikTok with our TikTok team or an Instagram post, which fan segment are we targeting that to, and where's the conversion going to happen, and when do we know that it's worked, and when do we say, okay, we tried it, didn't work, let's move on, rather than maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago we might have just talked about the fan and we probably meant you, avid rusted on pies fan.
No, exactly. That is the thing. When I'm talking to a digi team, it is like you can't produce a piece of content that is for everyone, and when you do, it just becomes for no one. And whereas if you say, oh, this is for the avid fan and this is for the, for the new fan, because as an avid fan, you don't need to explain the rules to me or the scoring, but for someone internationally,
you're probably very happy to explain them to me, aren't you, Sean?
No, I'm happy to explain them to my friends in the US and America. So I think there's a lot of AFL fans that are advocates in that sense, but it is really important to go, and again, you always get some fans complaining about, certain things. It's like, well, it's not for you. It doesn't have to be for you. You don't have to consume it. And so it's sort of that piece. On the future front and on the technology front, obviously AI is looming large and getting bigger and bigger, and the opportunities in that enablement space. How are you looking at it, and looking at some of the opportunities, and also making sure things are protected from a cybersecurity point of view?
Yeah, so we are currently rolling out enterprise AI for all team members at the AFL, and we did a lot of work to sort of get to this point, and a lot of thinking. And so we have an AI steerco at the AFL, and on that steerco is myself, Walter Lee, who's the head of strategy and data, and our people and culture EGM as well, because it's really it's so much of it of AI for us is about our people and enabling them to make sure that they have the skills that they need to do their jobs, and that and to be to be valid in the workforce of today and tomorrow. And so what we see AI doing for us is many things. Like I recently went to the US and attended a couple of conferences. AI note-taking is, thank you for whoever developed all of those different tools. So it's so great. I wondered if it would, for instance, make me less focused in a conference environment. It made me more focused because I wasn't worrying about capturing that note and thinking about when was I going to type up my notes and what were they going to look like. I really digested the information more, and I came back with so much more information that I would have, that I can easily represent in different forums with the right relevancy. So that to me is a great efficiency that AI provides to me as a worker. But it also enables us to do things that we talk to a lot of partners that we have across the board around their use of AI before we made our commitment. We're investing probably a lot more in training than we are in the tools itself, and finding the specific tools that we need as we go through the journey with our people, about where those efficiencies are. But we work with our partner Telstra a lot on our digital platform, for instance. So introducing an AI companion into our digital experiences is a bit of a no-brainer. So how do we make it easier for people to find the things that they're looking for on our platforms using AI will be something that we incrementally roll out on the platform starting at the back end of this year. And you know, everything in between, the use of AI, I mean, it's there and it has been there. I mean, AI is data, right? So it's been there. Champion data obviously provide a big part of the ecosystem for sport and for the AFL. And so match stats and data and the ability to crunch that data and to look at it. But you can imagine all the realms across a sporting organisation where AI will be useful. But AI, everyone's having this discussion around the dinner table, around the workplace, and responsible use of AI is, the governance and the principles with which we use it at the AFL are really important to us. Setting up AI champions across the organisation is something that we're really passionate about and that many of our people are passionate about being and learning from each other. I think the more naive use of AI or the early adoption of, hey, help me plan my holiday or my diet through to those personal use cases. I mean, I worked really hard on those conference notes that I mentioned. I captured them, put them into a format that I felt happy with. I probably spent 5 days prompting and setting it up in a way that I feel confident I can now use really efficiently. So it's not hey, give me a recording and I'm done and here you go, I'll present a slide. It's that there's a lot of work and brain power that needs from each of us that needs to go into the responsible use of AI, in our view.
Yeah, absolutely. I just got back from SEAT in Charlotte, and all the way through the conference, I was just chatting with my agent to take all the notes of all the things I had to follow up with, when previously that just would have been a handful of business cards, not that people have business cards anymore, and me trying to remember, what did I talk to him about that? So, it was about me, improving my experience there to be able to get more out of it. And, it is a bit of I think it is a superpower for your staff. It's one, you can give them the tools, but, we've had tools for many years. It's like, how do you go about using the tools? What's the best way to use them? Is the easy early lift?
Yeah, I think also, it is. I'm old enough to remember pre-laptop workplaces, and I remember some people had laptops, some people didn't, and then, I mean, can you imagine not having access to a computer or a laptop in the work that we do today? And so I think that fear of what AI will do, it's a very rapid industrial revolution, though, that said. So another evolution and revolution of curiosity and learning in a career space, which is interesting. And then we just need to lead responsibly through it.
Yeah,
I think is the key for us, and find the benefits and really be aware of that as we move through and adapt and iterate.
I mean, we're both in the way I've described it, we've both been through these revolutions, but that first one was the web and everyone finding the web and figuring out how to use the web. And then I started Sports Geek at the start of that social media. What do these platforms do to us? How do we reach our fans? And we've, and that vastly changed. It changed businesses. It changed the way that you talk to fans. And I think the AI revolution and the way is going to have that same sort of transformation, both in the way you do your job and that kind of thing, but also how we, communicate with our fans.
Yeah, I think my sort of last point on AI, or if we're going to move on from it, is I think a big part of my job, it's growing the fan base, of course, and ensuring the fan base is there for the future of footy, but it's also deepening and creating a sense of belonging and an attachment to it. And then I go, okay, well, how does AI play a role in that? One of our photography team, and the AFL has this amazing photography team and archive, recently showed me this piece where they've gone back into the archives and the ability to sort of bring to the fore these beautiful historic images of a fan, a young Richmond fan, this young girl, 100 years ago. We can retouch those photos, but actually we can make them come alive now through the use of AI. And it's a beautiful, emotional connection moment. I'm not even a Richmond fan, and I got a bit teary looking at it and going, wow, the power that this gives us to be able to create a moment of connection with the past, and something that makes you think about sport as this permanent thing that is in real life experience and always will be, that is unpredictable. It's the best piece of reality TV you could ever commission. And then we can also connect you with the past through the use of AI and create a sense of belonging and engagement in a way that we wouldn't have been able to before AI, is beautiful. It's so powerful and really emotional. So, that's a great use of AI, and will continue to be, and a beautiful story for the fan.
Absolutely, and the fact that you can put those layers over the top of your current tech stack and your storage, like just the finding that photo is normally a human thing. It's like, oh, Barry, our historian, knows that photo's there, and he goes and finds it, and he knows where it is. Whereas, as we get to a point where, we can say, oh, give us photos from the 70s that fit this, and it goes into your archive and finds it, like, then it allows your creative people to do amazing creative things. Yeah. But if you can't find it, you can't do it. And so,
that's right.
Like, that's where I think that unlock is going to be, amazing for sports teams, but for everyone to be able to go, oh, we've got that resource somewhere, we can find it now.
Yeah, the scale of what we can do, and to your point, the queries that we can now, the questions we can ask of the material that we have, and as data storage scales and allows us to do that, it's incredible. It's really exciting.
So you've been in the world of media and tech and now sport for over 25 years. As a woman in tech and a woman in leadership, you would have seen some progress. But what progress have you seen, and what work is still to be done?
Yeah, I don't know if the work will ever stop, but it's a hard question to answer because there's some great examples of loads of progress.
Yep.
And then there's examples where I go, I can't believe this is still happening. So recently a friend and colleague of mine in a different organisation texted me from somewhere in the US and said, I just had to text you. I can't believe this. I'm hosting a meeting with a partner over here in the US, and I'm with two of my male colleagues. She's female. The guy we're meeting with said, oh, are you the secretary? Have you come along to take notes? And you're like, no, she's leading the meeting. And so that's unbelievable to me that still happens, and that is just a part of life. But equally, the number of women in our organisation is strong. We are 50-50. The number of women on our exec team is strong, and we are, we are evenly balanced. The number of conversations that I'm in telco, in media, in sport, traditionally male-dominated, increasingly meeting with female CEOs, female leaders, and male leaders who are very, very cognizant of the opportunity that they have to lead a diverse workforce and to encourage diversity across the board. So as I've gotten older as well, you become more aware of a range of different diverse opportunities and challenges that we face in the workforce, not just gender, but also age. I often hear, is that person too young for that job? And I think, imagine if someone said to me, I'm not sure, you might be too old for that job, how I'd feel. And it's both ends of the age scale, by the way. And so there's I just think we just have to stay super aware as leaders and as participants in the workforce and look around us and ask ourselves the question, are we ensuring that we're making the opportunity, the right opportunity for someone who's from a different background? So maybe you're not from footy. My favourite quote about footy is, I went to this school and I'm of this gender, and so I'm applying for this role because I was born for this job at the AFL. And I'm like, I went to Coffs Harbour High School, I'm a grandmother from Sydney, and I feel like I was born for the role that I'm in now. And that's not what those other people are saying, that think they're ready for the role. So we just need to make sure that we're open to people with the right, we need capabilities that sit across the scale, and we need every kind of skill set in the business, and that comes from a diverse workforce. It doesn't come from a workforce that all looks the same, and we're all responsible for that. So, as a female leader, I've got 4 daughters who are now also in the workforce, and I look at the journey they're on and some of their experiences, and so I'd love to say, yeah, it's totally changed. It's completely different. It's an even road for everyone, but it's just not. We have to be aware of pay gaps. We have to be aware of opening the door. We have to be aware of the perceptions, like I said at the beginning of this question, that are in the room. And you have to. Sometimes I'm like, should I have spoken up then, or shouldn't I? Maybe it's in a social setting, or maybe it's in a work setting. And I think it's always the right thing to do if you're promoting equity.
Absolutely. And other than calling out the rubbish that you got in the text, what advice do you have for listeners to help champion that, whether they be, old white guys like myself, or people of diverse backgrounds trying to work their way into the industry? It's
just that constant check on your bias. It's like constantly. So, I'll often say I've got a conscious bias, and then I'll be like, well, I'm saying it, but it's actually unconscious because I had to pull it out and claim it in that way. I think it's looking around the room going, or looking at that panel and going, hang on a sec, what's happened here? We're all of one gender on the stage, or we're all of this experience, or we've just put that working group or that steerco together, and everyone's got 20 years experience, and they're from the same suburb, or of the same gender, and it should just be a constant question. Maybe AI can help us with that, Sean. Maybe there's some agents and some prompts that actually bring it right to the front, because sometimes you get there but 10 steps too late.
So yes, it could, because it does, like we said, it does give you that superpower. But I've been reading a book on AI, and you've also got to be mindful of the biases that AI has for the data that it's ingested. Like if it's ingested a lot of content and it's come from a male point of view or a certain point of view, that's what it's going to report back. So even that tweak of it gives you your analysis of the fan or the project or the product, like going back to the prompt or going back to the LM and saying, does this cater for a diverse group, or, have you looked at it from a diversity point of view, is still a question you still got to ask AI.
Yeah. I think the other angle for us at the AFL is, the AFLW competition is now into its 11th season. And when we think about fandom and everything we've been talking about, there's the fandom funnel and the fandom scale, and it's different for AFLW, and that's actually so the question actually we asked, and we spoke to a lot of sporting organisations in the US about, is should the fan funnel be the same? Should you try to replicate the men's in women's or not? And actually, fandom for the W game, it's it's player led across all sports, but very player led in W, and allowing and encouraging and sitting in that sense of, we want W to be bold, and we want the players to be bold, and we don't want to constrain that. We want them to be who they are, and some of them might want to be bold, and some might not want to be bold, and that's okay. And freeing up and having a different lens to how we approach fandom, and the brand of Footy that sits in W is also important as well. And it's complex. It's complex to negotiate, creating something that from a brand and a fandom perspective, it's not a cookie cut of the same thing that's been happening for 150 years, and making sure that you're respectful of the athletes and the code and driving growth and athleticism and fandom in maybe a different way, not because they're women, but because the fans of the game are coming from different places and are in some ways more diverse, is a really interesting and exciting opportunity for us.
Absolutely, but how has you've been in the AFL now for obviously on the side, but now internally, relearning how to do that when you've had 150 years of this is how we've done it and this is what's worked and look at us, how well it's gone on the men's side. How's that transformation like? Because it's a bit like baby giraffe walking. You've got to learn to walk again, because it is, you've sort of got to say, oh, we are going to have this as a clean slate.
Yeah.
Either because this is what we want to do, or, oh, these are the fans that are coming and they don't fit in this model. They just get stuck because they don't fit. How's that learning and I guess changing of behaviour been for W? Because I think it's happened with AFLW and a lot of the W sports and the women's sports internationally in here, that it is a different model and the fandom journey is different. How hard has it been, or that transition period to get the AFL to change its behaviour a little bit to understand that?
I think I'd say my one-word summary of it is it's exciting. So it is because you have to go into a slightly different gear and lane, but it's a really exciting one to be in. Like, women's sport is on a huge growth trajectory globally. So that's how exciting to be here in season 11 and to know that, that we're moving in a trajectory that looks like this, and to know that we're in an age and a world where sport is an entertainment product, and this product is led by the game, but also by culture, by fashion, by music. So bringing those elements in is really exciting. And Laura Kane is an exceptional leader of AFLW, an exceptional executive, and her, she's the embracing of let's just go for it. Let's absolutely go for this, and what that means, and the opportunity for us to
Absolutely. I normally finish by asking what excites you over the next 18 months. I think you answered a lot of it there with what W, but looking at both W and your broader role, what does excite you over the next 12 to 18 months, and what you've got in your roadmap? Yep. Absolutely. Well, I want to get to the Sports Geek Closing 5, Bec. Do you remember the first sports event you ever attended? Yep. Terrific. And you would have been a lot of sports events in your time. Do you have a favourite food or a go-to food at a sports event? Yeah, absolutely, and we are thankful that food has evolved all at sport. What's the first app you open in the morning? That's so. What's your streak up to? You lose the time zone. Yeah, I know. That's the no, no, exactly. That is a pain when you're happy to be gamified and the time zone breaks it for you. Is there someone that you follow? It might be a colleague, it might be an author, it might be someone online that the podcast listeners should give a follow to, and why? Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. I'll check him out. Sounds a little. Yep. Yep. Oh, well, yeah. Well, that'll be the promo image for this podcast. It'll be Sophie pointing to this episode. We'll go with that. And then lastly, I always ask, you can put your AFL hat on and you can put your personal hat on, but what social media platform is your MVP? Yep. Yeah, but the good thing is about it, Instagram, like all the stuff that ends up on TikTok or Snapchat normally ends up on Instagram anyway. It sort of seems to be the final landing place for most. Bec, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. I always ask people who listen who get some value to reach out and say thank you. What's the best platform for people to do that for you? Well, thank you very much. All the best for the rest of the AFL season with the finals coming up. And I hit stop.